Hi, I'm Ricky Fort and welcome to the Real Estate 101 podcast. Join me as I lift the lid on the real estate industry and share some great stories from behind the scenes. Like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Real Estate Podcast 101 with Vicky Fort from Geelong Real Estate Co. That's me and my very special guest today, Vicky Whittaker.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Which buyer's advocate, which company are you with?
Elite Buyer Agents.
And they're predominantly based in
Melbourne, and then I run the Geelong office.
Love that. Woman in charge. Yeah. Absolutely. So, you've never done a podcast before?
No.
Bit nervous?
Yes.
We'll get into it. So, the whole idea is obviously just to talk a little bit about, life, business, real estate. If you've got any spicy stories, which I think you'll have plenty. But first of all, we've got to address the elephant in the room. The Matildas went down to your mob.
Yes, it did.
So, you're half Aussie,
half Australian, half English, yeah.
Yeah. And you said that banter around your accent is permitted on the podcast?
Yes, it is. Actually, interestingly enough, when I've just come back from the UK and I've not been back for 4 years, and everybody says I sound full Australian.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
What like fun phrases were you whipping out over there for them to?
Well, I didn't
surely
think
you
I
hammed
was.
up a little bit, no?
No, I was just talking not like normal. I thought I had my full Hucknall common accent on, but obviously not. It was a full Geelong accent.
Okay. And so you've recently shacked up with a Melbourne boy?
Horsham boy.
Horsham boy. Good country boy?
Yeah.
And you took him back home?
Yes.
What did they think?
They liked him, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so he had to live with my mum for 2 weeks.
Yep. How was it?
It was fine for me. And I kept staying in my mum's spare bedroom. And then by the end of the 2 weeks, everyone says, God, Dan's done really well, hasn't he, like living with your mum.
Yeah.
But apparently I'm very like my mother.
So where are you from?
Nottingham, which is right in the middle of the UK. So Robin Hood, Sherwood Forest.
Got ya. So what brought you out here?
I was travelling the world with an ex-partner at the time, an English guy from home. We decided to come to Australia to stay here for 3 months, just earn some money and then go and do South America.
Yep.
And then we never actually left
the rest
Australia.
Is history.
Yeah.
Here you are. You
And
fell
here
in
I am.
love.
Yeah.
With the beaches.
Yeah. So Melbourne for 10 years, and then I've been in Geelong coming up to 4.5 years.
Yeah. And what do you think the main differences are from obviously Melbourne to Geelong? Like what made you pick here?
A slower lifestyle. I think everybody's very friendly, welcoming. You feel like part of a community more than being in Melbourne. You're just a number. And just
it's
in
a
the
good
rat
analogy.
race.
I remember when I was working for Bendigo Bank out of Docklands, I watched this woman trip over once, like in peak hour, and people were climbing over her, and I was like, "This is fucked."
Yeah, no one gives a
This is
shit.
a horrible place.
Yeah.
Sorry to anyone from Melbourne for listening. I'm sure it's not really like that, but yeah, it's not the same vibe. Like Geelong, once you've been here a while, yeah. I obviously, as you know, grew up in Ballarat, and smaller country town, but Geelong, it's good place to be.
Yeah, I love it. I'd never go back to Melbourne. I remember saying to all the girls, I'm going to come back every weekend and we're still going to go out on the town. I get anxiety having to go over the Westgate Bridge now. Yeah. I hate it.
Speaking of going out on the town, you're not shy from a cocktail or a shardy? Yeah. Is that a thing from back home, or have you got that worse from being here? Or
it's a thing from back home. I will never grow out of being a party animal.
I like it. How do you mix being a party animal with being, like, obviously, you're a hard worker. I'd almost borderline say you're a workaholic. How do you do the two at once?
I think it's just become ingrained in part of my life. Work hard, play hard.
I get it.
Yep.
I like it. What does your partner do?
He's in sales. He's in agriculture sales. He sells chemicals off to farmers.
Cool. Very good. I like that. Right. So let's go way back. Yeah. So maybe I ask a couple of familiar questions with a lot of the guests, and one is like, tell us about your family. And I guess what I'm keen to hear is like, was being a business owner or involved in real estate or an investor or whatever, is that something that come from your family, or like, you know how they say you are the 4 or 5 people you hang around? Is that any of that true for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I grew up. My dad had his own business. He was a greengrocer, but my main property comes from my grandfather. He was a builder, property developer. And he used to buy investment properties. I've always grown up, you buy an investment property and you generally just hold it forever. So my parents have always had investment properties. My granddad has. He always used to buy land, subdivide it, and build houses on there.
Yeah.
So always been involved in property.
What do you think the difference is in like real estate back home to real estate here?
It's completely different. The way they do everything is so different. For instance, we have our set settlement day, so we'll do.
When you say
days.
we, who is we?
So in Australia, we've got a settlement day, so 30 days.
Yep.
Whereas in the UK, you buy a property, you enter into a chain. So you've got a chain. You put the offer in on the house. The person that's living in that house then buys another one. They enter into a chain. If someone breaks that chain, everyone loses. There can be 10 people involved in that chain. And if someone pulls out, it can all drop.
Yuck.
So you almost don't know you've actually got a home until you exchange. They don't exchange contracts until a few days before you get in the keys.
Wow.
It's awful. And to think about it now, I'm just like, that would just be a horrible feeling.
In terms of value of real estate, not so much like how many dollars and cents or whatever it's worth, or pound?
Pound, yeah.
I don't know. It shows how cultured I am. But my partner lived over there for years. But anyway, in terms of like not so much the dollars and pounds, but in terms of your average household income and spend and that sort of stuff, is it expensive to own real estate there versus here, or better, worse?
It's expensive to own real estate there. It's interesting, obviously, having just come back from the UK. Everything is expensive in the UK, and we was shocked by how expensive things are. The only things that was cheap there was alcohol. But going out for dinner...
Just because it's a staple.
Yeah, you could buy a steak, and the steak was like 32 quid, which is £32. But that's $64. Like, where do we go here and we pay $64 for a steak and chips? Have
you been to Squire's Loft?
Yeah, apart from going to Squire's Loft. But just going to your normal local pub. Yeah. It was just ridiculously expensive. And then their average wage is about 29 grand a year.
Yeah.
Compared to what ours is.
Yeah, right.
And
so the cost of living is...
It's ridiculous. And just talking to people there, they was just saying about the cost of living. There's a real difference now between the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
There's generally no in the middle.
Yeah. I read a stat on Domain a while ago that the average first-home buyer in Victoria is like 30 now. Obviously Victoria and Australia. Like, is it similar over there, or is it even worse, I guess? Is it kind of you've almost got to inherit something? Or?
Yeah, it is similar over there. You do get a lot more people being able to afford to buy. I think the mortgage process is different.
Yeah.
But looking at house prices, I bought my first house over there and paid 50 grand for it, and we sold it when my partner and I broke up, and then it's now at like 200 grand.
Yeah.
But at the time, you're like, how can this go? And you never really think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was on $13,000 a year then.
Yeah. Do you regret selling it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even text my ex when I saw it come online. I was like, what the fuck did you do?
Should have found a way to keep it. Yeah. Yeah, so going back to your family and that sort of stuff, obviously that was kind of ingrained you from an early age around building wealth and all that sort of thing. Transition, coming to Australia, were they supportive of that, or did they just think it was a holiday and you'd be back? Or?
Yeah, I promised everyone I'd be back within a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have they been out?
Yeah, my parents, mum and dad are divorced, so I had mum here with me for 2.5 months at the back end of last year.
Yeah.
And dad for nearly 6 weeks in January.
Yeah. They proud of you and what you're doing out here?
Yeah, really proud.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. So, yeah, I guess tell us maybe about your turn 18. Or when did you come out here?
2009. So I'd 14 years ago, so 26.
26, just a baby.
Yeah.
What was your first job out here?
Oh, God. Picking oranges.
Oh, classic, obviously, yeah.
Picked oranges in Perth.
Yep. Classic.
And we ended up doing it. You're meant to do just 3 months to be able to get your second year, but we ended up doing it for 6 months. We actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's a really awesome culture and like people from all over the world. And
and we earned money, decent money, had a free accommodation, and managed to save a shitload of money as well.
Yeah, love it. So yeah, tell us about the transition into like your real estate career here in Australia.
Because of visa situations, I could never have a job longer than 6 months. So just went into working in offices. I went into like personal assistant and EA space.
You'd be a weapon at those things because you're like the most efficient.
Just whipping everyone into shape.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So you enjoyed that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then I worked for the same guy for a while, and he just kept moving me within the business so I could go through the loopholes. And then we went to South America for 3 months. So went and did our South America trip that we'd planned a few years. We was meant to do a few years before, but we never did. And then I came back and asked the guy for a job back, and he says, yeah, you can, but you're only going to come on temporary. I want you to go back into property. And he had someone for me to be introduced to. I went for a property manager role, and they rejected me for a property manager role. I'm like, why have I been rejected for a property manager role? I've got like 10 years experience. And then they offered me an assistant buyer's agent role. I'd never heard of what a buyer's agent was, but straight away, I loved it.
Awesome. It'd be so funny to see what your journey had been, because I know you're like the ultimate professional and you would have done really well, obviously, from that side of things. But, yeah, what a different story it could have been.
Yeah.
So, tell us about what the first, 6 weeks, 6 months of being the buyer's agent. What does that look like? And this is obviously still in Melbourne at this point.
Yeah, this was still in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So I used to go out with my boss, and obviously he was showing me all the ropes. And then there was one day, he says, right, you've got to go off on, I can't do an inspection with a client, you've got to go off on your own. So I went off and did an inspection with a client on my own, and it was a footballer. And I don't know footballers.
Also, when you say football.
Oh, sorry, AFL player.
Good.
Of course, I was like, oh, who's this? And I can remember texting one of the assistants in the office.
As in they were attractive or like, yeah, nice.
I was like, God, you never told me how hot he was. So then having to like walk in through a property and
they
talk
had good banter and you would have been batting your eyelids and stuff.
And I was like, I think I can do this job forever.
Love it. Long story short, did he buy the property?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Have you stayed in touch? Like, he's a good customer?
No, because that's going back just under 10 years ago. Like, I stayed in touch with them. They had a lot of high-end clients who I was working for before, and I did stay in touch. I went to a 30th birthday party of another one and bought a couple of other houses for some other players, which was good.
Yeah, nice.
Did stay in touch for a while, partied with a few of them quite a few times, and then that's it.
Can't imagine that from you,
I know.
partying with someone.
I know.
Yep. Have you bought for anyone from Geelong?
No.
No. Cool. Keep it separate.
Yeah.
I like that. Keep your partying ways up in Melbourne.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the good stuff, mate. So give me some good deals and give me some shit ones. Give me something that's gone horribly wrong.
Horribly wrong.
Don't say
that never bloody happens to me. I'll give you a good one.
Hang
actually.
on, I'll dob you in if you don't give me some. I know some good ones. Go.
I'll give you a good one because it's literally just happened. I've just been working with a client, really special story, and I won't go into that, but with her and a young son. We've been looking for a while. Obviously, as you know, there's been low stock on the market. They've got a really reasonable budget. I put vision boards up on my wall of what clients are looking for.
Really?
Yeah. Especially for homeowner clients. So put pictures up of the kind of thing that they're looking for and obviously try and attract that in. We managed to secure a brilliant property last night, and when I rang her, there was tears from both sides, her and me. And then I've took her around champagne today, and we've hugged and kissed again. And just things like that just makes me remember why I do this job and how fabulous it was. And I've been a sounding board for her for the last 6 months, working with her and bringing her back into line when she's going off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's...
Is it hard when you've got customers with not even unrealistic budget, like it's their fault and they've got greedy, but the process and the reason why I refer you is because it's so hard educating some buyers. They think that it's just a long journey for people to learn what they're actually going to get for their money and to prioritise on the things that are important and that sort of stuff. And that's why, I don't think we're competitors at all, and we're actually allies because we serve two different purposes. And just that process, I've got so much respect for you, and that's why your customers love you, because it's a long-term investment.
It is. It's the biggest financial decision you're ever going to make. And particularly for investors buying the right and wrong thing. And there is a right and wrong thing with investment properties. And then your homeowners as well. Like, honestly, the conversations that I've had with homeowners, and they want everything for the budget. And sometimes you've got to allow them to go through that journey and learn not, and just guide them along the way. But the amount of times I've sat down and gone through a brief with a client and we're looking, I'm like, I'm not sure you're going to get this. We're going to have to change things somewhere. And they're like, no. At the time, they generally know best. And then gradually, once you've built that relationship, and I'm massive on building relationships.
I think that's why people struggle to trust a real estate agent, because there's so many bad ones out there. But you try and be honest with people and tell people, look, I get it. I work for the vendor. I'm trying to promote the highest possible price. I understand that. But also what you're trying to achieve, honestly, like people they don't even think it's lowballing, but they'll put in an offer. I'm selling something at the moment, price range 589 to 629, and they think, they're reading the news and thinking it's a bad market. I price stuff well, so I price stuff to sell. They have come in with a preconceived mindset that the market's really bad. They've offered like 560 or whatever, and you say to them, and in their heart that they believe that that's probably what it's worth and that's what's actually going to buy it, and then you're like, well, actually, I've had an offer for 600 or 605, and if you hadn't have had that offer, they would just believe in their mind that. Yeah. So that's what I mean. I tap my hat off to you, because it is a long process to get people educated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they think we're just in sales. They're like, oh, you just want to sell me a house. It's like, no, mate, this is real. You genuinely need to be here if you want to buy something.
Yeah. Yeah. And buyers have got to do their own research as well. I mean, we do obviously that for them, but I do encourage clients of mine to look themselves and to have a few days to read over reports and things that I've sent over. And sometimes clients have got to miss things, unfortunately, to get them in that. And not just my clients, like your buyers as well. They have got to miss some things to get them in the right headspace and know where they should be.
Kiss a few frogs before you get to the prince.
That is the truest story.
So tell me about maybe some heartbreak too, like when you've finally won the bidding and then, you get a building inspection. That's hard for both sides, for you and for me, when we've got a buyer and a seller and you and I are trying to do a deal together and a building inspection's come up and, it's really negative and we haven't been able to resolve it. Yeah. Obviously, I think you and I work well together and that sort of thing. We can usually try and keep stuff together, but it happens.
It does. And it's having a good team around you and the building inspector that you use as well.
Yeah, some good ones,
some good ones,
not so good ones.
Not so good.
Yep.
I mean, the building inspector I use, he gets on the phone to the client and really talks them through, which it's a massive benefit.
I think we use the same building inspector. Yep.
And that's a massive benefit to my clients. I'm not a building inspector. I can walk through a property and know that when things are going to come up, but there's things I can't see.
Yep.
And I trust him to have my client's best interest at heart as well.
I think people think where we're going wrong is so many people have got this preconceived idea of a building inspector that they're supposed to come through and just talk shit about the house and tear it apart and that sort of stuff. And that's the frustrating part, because you've worked hard with a customer to get them to understand or see value in a product. Yeah. Excuse me, you've been searching for a unicorn, you finally found it. Yes, it needs this, this and this, but you essentially already knew that. And then this building inspector rides in on a white horse and just slays it and talks shit about it and just rides off into the sunset. And like, what are you doing? Because this customer now can't see the forest through the trees. This is an amazing product they're about to walk away from because of some shit advice. Yeah,
100%. And some building inspectors as well, just they don't get on the phone before they've sent a report. Like, if I'd never seen a property building inspection report before, you'd get it and you'd absolutely shit yourself. You'd look, what? Yeah. I'm spending 600 grand on this and it looks like it's falling down because they've not explained those points to you. You see major defect, minor defect and safety hazards and go, oh, I'm not doing this.
Well, some of the building inspectors too, like, and some that I'm not such big fans of, but, it's all in capitals and it's in red and there's like 15 exclamation marks about something that the other building inspector gets on, and they, it's so litigious. Everyone's suing everyone. They need to get on and say it how it is and say, look, unfortunately this would be a major structural defect. So, by way of the contract, you could pull out, but just so you know, I've been in this game for X amount of years. I've looked at X amount of properties. This is kind of normal, and then also the good ones give some indication, not quotes, but like verbal, just guesstimates. It'd be somewhere between here and here, and there might be like 20 or 30% off. But without those people,
it would make the job really even harder than what it is.
Yeah. Have you bought a lemon?
Have I bought a lemon?
You know how sometimes like it might even pass a building inspection as such, but like, or for example, then let's go the other way. you've bought it, all's well, it's passed their building inspection, the buyer moves in or the tenant moves in, hot water service shits itself. They get that fixed, water main shits itself. Like, you know what I mean? Just issues.
Yeah. So one, a couple of years ago, was an off-market purchase. In fact, my building inspector didn't do this. It was another one coming in from Melbourne. And everything came back fine. A couple of things like with the garage, that it just, it had a bit of a water leak in the garage. And he explained how you fixed it. So we got all that fixed. But there's been constant things of maintenance coming up. It's been a tenanted property. There was a lot more wrong with that garage than what had actually come up.
Yeah.
We only know what we know and what we're told.
Yeah.
And it's been an ongoing battle.
But some, like I've had customers that have bought absolute crap boxes off me, but it's in an amazing location. The asset is appreciating like no one's business. You know what I mean? Financially, they're going to do so well out of it. Yeah. And it's just one of those things. It depends on the reason they're buying the property though. Yeah,
exactly. And what the brief is, and especially for investors. I mean,
like I'm going to knock this thing, put four townhouses, just get me some rent coming in while I go through the planning application process.
Yeah. And that particular client wanted something that he was going to eventually develop. And at the time was in a hot market. There's only certain things you can get that's actually rentable, and then you're going to develop it down the track. Yeah. There's with things like that in a hot market, there's a very fine line between getting the thing, but certainly put me off a couple of things that did.
I've got a fun question for you. Anyone that is obviously so closely related to working with multiple agents, and I've always wondered how you maintain relationships. Like we had a stylist in recently, and, you know, you can't be seen to be too supportive on like social media or like be seen to be buying, because I know there's some buyers advocates in Geelong. One in particular buys absolutely everything that Buxton has for sale. I'm like, do you look at anyone else's stuff? So I guess, I think it'd just be a hard thing to manage relationships. You don't want to be too supportive on someone's social media, or you don't want to be seen to be buying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, complete sense.
How do you go about that? Because obviously we feel like we're your number one customer, and you love us unconditionally, and our relationship's amazing with you. But from what I hear from other people, they feel the same about you.
Spread the love.
Yeah, but it's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Like you come to our birthday, you've celebrated with us and that sort of thing, but I feel like you do share the love. And how do you manage those relationships?
I've never really thought about that before, because I think it just comes.
I see it as a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I never like letting like someone down, but I'm working for my client. I'm going to go through the properties that are fitting their brief. It doesn't matter to me whether you guys have got it or Ray White or Buxton. I'm not bothered. It's the right thing for the client. But I do spend a lot of time trying to build relationships with agents. I think it's one of the reasons I've done well down here, and I think I have done well.
I think it's the accent and the red hair.
Yeah. Well, I was quite disappointed when obviously people said I was getting Australian, and I was like, well, I hope I'm not, because I think that...
This is what gets me business back home. Yeah, love it.
I mean, it can be hard. I'd never really thought about it like that, but I make the effort to talk to people, and I love going out on a Saturday and speaking with agents. And
a Saturday night.
And then Saturday after. And a Friday night,
Give us some advice. So if someone was thinking about, I know you don't want competition, but it is what it is. If someone's thinking about getting into being a buyer's advocate or a vendor's advocate, what's something you wish you had known sooner? Like any big regrets, any big cock-ups?
So, it is the relationship making with agents, because I think when I was in Melbourne, it may be easier in Geelong because we're smaller. You deal with the same agents day in, day out, so you're always going to get them strong relationships, whereas in Melbourne it was a bit different. You're in St Kilda and then you're in Pascoe Vale, so it's quite different. You're not seeing them every day. But really I think it's the respect as well for the agents. Like, I drop the ball sometimes and I don't let you know that I'm not interested in that one anymore, or I don't return a call that day and I'll come back to you tomorrow. But in Melbourne, that was never drilled into you quite so much. So I think you need agents. You need to have relationships with agents. It's your biggest thing.
I think, and it goes both ways. That's why we're so lucky to have a relationship with you and with other buyers advocates, obviously, and it's built on trust and not recommending crap stuff to you. And then I guess we're taken more seriously when we do have something, and the amount of off-market deals and that we can put together because it's a two-way street built on trust. And
and just back to that, if someone wanted to be a buyer's agent or advocate, you obviously see these things on Instagram or any ads and saying, oh, you can earn $1 million a year being a buyer's advocate.
I have seen some of those ads.
And you only need to work 20 hours a week. What I can tell you now is it's not 20 hours a week. It's 24/7.
I think you're just trying to hold...
Highly emotional.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig sometimes. It is a tough gig. You've got to have the patience of a saint.
How are you kind of handling people worried about the falling market? People don't want to catch a falling knife, is the old expression. They don't want to buy now because in 6 months it might be cheaper. You can't always be an optimist because then you're just a sleazy salesman, right? Because no, the market's fine, it's going to pick up. What do you do?
The best time to buy a property is when you've got the money to do it.
I like that. I thought you were going to say, what's the other saying? 10 years ago and the second best time is now or whatever.
So, if you've got the money to do it now. If you're an investor, you're in it for long term. You're not just going to buy today and flog it next year. You've got to be in it, in my opinion, for the very least 10 years. Yeah. Ideally a little bit longer. So I don't believe that should make a difference. But people listen, unfortunately, to the media. And again, that it comes to trust when clients are working with you and you've told them what you have. It's getting into the market and buying the right asset. A property market will always do that. It's never, ever just going to go up.
Love it. Who's the agent that you dislike the most in Geelong? I'm only joking. Don't answer that. Best or worst experience that you've had? Have you had like the old final inspection, all of a sudden there's no keys or... What about, surely you've done some inspections with tenants sleeping on the couch or something like that? Had none of this?
I've done an inspection, this is when I was in Melbourne, it was an off-market inspection, it was tenanted and I walked in. And I don't know whether the girl didn't know I was coming or what. There were shitty nappies all the way through the house, like in the bath and kids running around. And it was a really nice house. I think it was over $1 million. I'm like, how can people live like this with shit everywhere?
Did the buyer buy the house?
No. Luckily, I didn't take them through. I was just going through on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. Ugh.
That's a good
I've
one.
seen some sites walking in and you smell something a little bit dodgy or someone's just getting out of bed. I think I've walked in and there's a tenant been in asleep before. And you just keep the door shut. Yeah. But nothing juicy like walking in and someone shagging or something like that. That'd be good.
Well, you're only 20 years into your career. There's still time for that, I guess.
I know. Yeah. I'll manifest that in.
I've seen it all. I've seen, like nudity. I've seen plantations. I've seen you name it. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Can't wait for that.
I remember the very first house I ever sold, the very first inspection I did. Yeah. The bedside table drawer had been left open. Yeah. And I felt like it was deliberate because the woman who we were selling the property for had the hots for my boss. Yeah. And I was like, it's a true story. And he's like, mate, that's real estate. And I was like, wow, okay. So maybe you run in different circles to me, but that was a bit of an eye opener. Predictions for the remainder of the year, obviously in terms of you're not an economist. I guess you've got to be across it. You've got to read the same stuff we do. But are you seeing, what are you visioning? 1 or 2 more interest rate rises, more, less?
I think probably 1 before the end of the year. I'm quite confident we might not have another one next month. I think stock levels are going to continue to remain very similar to what they are. Yep. Which, in my opinion, is holding the prices where they are. Is
that good or bad for you? Because obviously, if prices come back, like you're not on the vendor side, I guess.
It's really, I think at the moment it's difficult. We've got a lot of inconsistency in the market. Yep. At the minute, and that's what makes it tough. It's been difficult with clients because they're not seeing enough stock. So when a property does come up and it's going to, like in my head, I generally know this is going to be a popular one. Trying to explain that to a client when they never come to Geelong.
Yeah, and they think it's a down market and you're like, no, this one's priced right.
Yeah.
You got to trust me. Everyone else is going to want this.
Yeah. And they think the market's going to drop another 50% in the next few months.
And lo and behold, the appraisal that you probably put on it and suggest this is what the sort of budget that's going to buy this property.
That's where it'll go for.
Probably eventuates, and then they say, "Oh, I should have listened," and you're like, "Awesome."
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to run over another buyer's advocate?
No.
No.
An agent, maybe.
See him putting out the signboard, and you like swerve towards them. I guess you probably see some patterns about some agents go out of their way to try and work with you and do deals together, and then some that see you as an enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a couple. And for instance, like when I'm calling or sending my emails out for off-market properties, I've got certain people that are coming back generally. There's others I've perhaps take them off my list sometimes.
Yeah.
Things like
can you see them like
dead.
if they click like unsubscribe or whatever, and you're like, asshole?
No. Luckily I don't, because I don't know whether I'd take it personal or not. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's only an email.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, we could talk for hours, and I know you've got a lot more stories than you're sharing. But thank you so much for coming on the show. It's as I said, we love working with you. Before we let you go, I guess who's your target market? Like, who do you want to work with? Who do you want that's listening to reach out to you, and what do you want to do for them?
Investors are like my bread and butter, but I do really enjoy working with like first home buyers or upsizers that have got a special story, just like the one I've just said. Like I'm open to working with people, but I believe I'm only going to attract in the people that I'm really aligned to work with. So investors, like if you want you can never get the perfect property, but if you want to be guided to get the best property for your goals.
In terms of fees, like just give someone a guesstimate of how it works. Do they pay you, like I know there's auction bidding fees, there's all different fees. Like you don't have to talk numbers, but like what does that look like? What do they pay for? So
we charge a fee for service, which is the full service fee, which is a flat fee. So it's not a percentage based. So a portion of that is upfront and the remainder is on successfully securing the property.
Do you feel that weeds out a lot of people who just want to use and abuse you and don't actually end up using you?
Yeah. And there is I'm not the cheapest advocate in town, and I know I'm not. And there is some cheaper ones. But
you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for.
Love that. Mate, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's
Thank you for having me.
It's awesome just doing business with you, but just being friends with you. You're a wicked girl.
Thank
you're
you.
a lot of fun, I just know that you're also a bloody ruthless negotiator. So, looking forward to doing a few more deals and drinks together.
Well, next time, can I have a glass of wine, please?
Sorry, I'll pick up my. I'll try harder next time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Vicky.
Legend.
See ya. Bye.